Hey, good morning. It's Ben Bring, the medical director for the OhioHealth Capital City Half and Quarter Marathon, here with our content expert today, Dawn Holmes, a sports dietitian expert. And Dawn, thanks so much for coming in today.
Yeah.
So we were just going to ask a couple of common questions and things for runners, maybe some dietary tips and tricks. So Dawn, for new runners, someone looking to get into running for the winter time, what are some easy dietary things that we can add into our day-to-day basis to help us perform really well, even for short or long runs?
Sure. So I think about just your overall foundation of what you're eating. We want to make sure, one, that we're eating consistently so our body has regular fuel, and that will help you repair and recover from training. So breakfast, lunch, dinner at pretty consistent times. If you have more than like 4 hours between meals, you may want to throw a snack in there. And when you're eating, think about including a source of energy, so carbohydrates like grains, starchy vegetables like potatoes, fruit, and then also some sort of protein to help you repair from those trainings. So meats, eggs, cheese, beans, seeds, and nuts. So make sure that you have that combo. I call it a powerful pair. And then at meals, try to make sure you have like a good source of vegetables, because that's sort of the nuts and bolts to keep your body healthy and to make those other carbs and proteins do the thing they need to do.
Yeah, that's great. And then when we also talk about hydration, it's also very important to stay hydrated throughout the course of the day. I know I personally struggle with this. I drink a lot of coffee in the mornings and I don't drink as much water as I should.
Yeah.
What are some strategies to stay hydrated throughout the course of the day?
Sure. So I also start my day with coffee. I find, and you may find this too, it makes me thirsty. And so I drink my coffee and then I'm like, wow, I need some water. So sort of big picture is we want to get around 8 to 10 cups of fluids a day. So your coffee counts. If you're doing a couple cups, that would be 2. Then you do some water. At meals, I like to recommend like milk because you're getting some electrolytes and protein with it. But you think about your day and kind of, if you have a glass at each meal, that's 3. And then sort of have maybe a water bottle or something that you're drinking in the morning between breakfast and lunch, and then lunch and dinner. So you've kind of broken it out throughout the course of the day. But really, your day-to-day hydration, just like your day-to-day eating, is establishing the foundation for you to be able to perform your best. Hydration is what keeps your body cool so you can go out there and do those miles.
Yeah, that's great. And then how about like even some post-recovery? We always talked about, maybe like a post-recovery drink that you recommend, or some sort of meal to help replenish some of those carbohydrates, things like that.
For recovery, we want to do 3 things. We want to rehydrate, so we want to get fluids back in, 16 to 24 ounces. We want to get protein, so we're repairing around 15 to 25 grams, and we want to refuel our muscles with carbohydrates, and that's about 2 to 3 times compared to your protein. So one of the classics is chocolate milk. 16 to 20 ounces would give you fluids, protein, and carbohydrates. You could do chocolate milk or a flavored soy milk. The almond just doesn't have any of the protein or really much carbs. You could also make a smoothie. Often after those long workouts, you're just not hungry, and so it's easier to drink something. So a smoothie made with like Greek yogurt or soy yogurt, adding a couple cups of fruit, splash of juice. If you do a protein shake, it's super convenient, but often we're missing the carb part. And for those long runs, your body uses carbs and stores them in the muscle. So we want to replace those carbs. So you need to put a couple pieces of fruit with it at least. If you get those fluids in quickly, then your gut starts to wake up a little bit, and you can have a meal within an hour or 2, and maybe even repeat it with a snack a couple hours after that, so you continue that recovery process.
All right. So one of the questions I get asked a lot is, what are some good snacks or things you can eat before a race or before a run? I know when I'm sitting at work, I always try to eat something like, pretzels or peanut butter, things like that, about an hour or 2 before I'm going to go out and run.
Yeah.
What are some other really good ideas or things our viewers can do prior to either a race or a run?
Yeah, great question. And that's a question I get a lot too, is, I'm afraid to eat before I go out. Think of it as like you're topping off your tank. You want to put things in that are easy for you to digest and your body's familiar with. So try these with your training runs before you jump into race day. the closer you are, so like half an hour, 15 minutes, is basically you just want to do carbs. So pretzels, graham crackers, bagels, fig bars. If you back it up a little bit more, you can add some protein. So for me, graham crackers and cheese work well. I don't have to it doesn't impact my bowel movements or my bathroom or anything like that. But I've figured it out on short runs. Pretzels and peanut butter, classic, very good. So cheese sticks also would work well, and they're pretty portable. So yeah.
Yeah, so we're entering some of the fall months here too, which means it's vegetable season. We joke, in the office. So what are some of your favorite vegetables, or things you can throw? I know we had talked about before about, baking some different kinds of vegetables.
Yeah.
This time of year, what's kind of your go-to vegetable?
Oh, wow. So my go-to vegetable right now is anything I can kind of roast in the oven because it makes it a little sweeter. It's just a different flavor. So like sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts, acorn squash is delicious. So and those, you can do kind of like a sheet pan meal and you throw some chicken in there or some sausages or soups and stews. You can throw a bunch of veggies in that way. You can also kind of do your own bowl, whether that's a chipotle type of bowl or a bibimbap type of bowl where you have your grains and your veggies and your protein, kind of whatever's left over from that roasted, you can mix it all together.
Yeah, that's great. I know my kids love the spaghetti squash this time of year.
Yeah.
It's a nice fun thing to do. You cut that thing open and they have a great time with it.
Yeah.
And then, you talked about sort of what the plate should look like. If you could give us just kind of a percentage of what you think, the average plate. I know we always try to recommend at least half your plate should be vegetables.
Right.
What are some other things you can fill onto the plate for dinner time?
Sure. So half your plate veggies is a great goal, and I know for a lot of people that's a challenge. So wherever your veggies are now, if it's not half, see if you can bump it up a little bit. We want about a quarter of your plate to be protein, whether that's an animal or beans, eggs. And then we want a quarter to a third to be grains or starches. So pasta, rice, potatoes. And I know you're doing the math and you're a quarter, a third, a half. That doesn't add up. So it depends on how much you're training and running. The longer distances, halves, fulls, ultras, you want more of that plate to be carbs. And then you still need that veggie component. So that grain part will vary depending on the type of training you're doing, so that your body has the fuel it needs. We also need something to drink with that meal, and so I really like to recommend milk because it's a good source of calcium for bones. It has protein and carbohydrates. The preferred milks, in terms of a nutrition standpoint, to give you carbs and protein would be a cow's milk or a soy milk or a pea protein-based milk.
That's great. And I know, just kind of one last question here. I know a lot more of our athletes are going to plant-based, vegan-based, diets. I know a certain quarterback here in Columbus has really been very vocal about being vegan and how much it's helped his strength and stamina.
Right.
So what are some really good protein sources from plant-based foods?
Yeah.
Things like that could really help our runners get stronger that are non-animal based.
Yes. So, first, if you are going to pursue more of a plant-based way of eating, you really need to love beans and lentils. If you don't, then it's going to be a big challenge for you because we want to do whole foods. So kidney beans and garbanzo beans, lentils, edamame, tofu, those are going to be sort of your core plant proteins. And the volume to eat to match animal proteins is pretty significant. About a cup of those things equals about 3 or 4 ounces of an animal protein. So if that's not your jam, then maybe just increase those beans and lentils with what you're already doing and kind of decrease the meat. So you kind of have a little bit of both. But those are your best sources of plant protein, and you want to include those every time you eat. So maybe at breakfast you're not going to have a bowl of lentils, but you can have soy milk, you can do peanut butter toast, and get it in that way.
Yeah, that's great advice. I know I always tell patients beans are probably one of the best bang for your buck foods with high protein, high fiber, and low calories. So yeah, one of our favorites to recommend there too. And
especially for athletes, it's such a great source of carbs too. But you also want to think about, you're getting a lot more fiber you're going to fill up. So you need to make sure you have really good healthy fats in there so you get enough calories too to do the fueling. So avocados, nuts, seeds, olives.
Yeah, and that's really great. I love how you talked about eating whole foods and non-processed foods. I think definitely for runners, it's really looking at your energy types and sources. Some great advice there. So yeah, so thanks so much for tuning in. Again, Dawn Holmes, our expert sports dietitian here this morning. Thanks so much for tuning in. Dawn, thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We appreciate your expertise as always. And we'll look forward to seeing you guys again on the next virtual run series, and we'll talk to you soon. Enjoy those runs.